In the pursuit of sustainable economic development, having a strong tax culture not only ensures consistent revenue streams, but also contributes to equitable growth and social development in African countries. It goes beyond a mere compliance and encompasses a shared understanding of the role taxes play in nation building. For Africa, fostering such a culture is pivotal as it bolsters government resources necessary for essential services and infrastructure development. On Tax in Africa today, in collaboration with West African Tax Administration Forum, we want to look at how African countries can improve on the IGRs. And joining me on this segment, I have Dr. Abiodun Adegboye. He is the Public Finance Economist and Research Fellow, IBFD Center for African Taxation. Doctor, it's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tax culture is a critical aspect of revenue mobilization, and you would want to agree with me on that. So how would you define a strong tax culture, and why is it essential for sustainable economic development in Africa?
Thank you. A strong tax culture is that culture that promotes tax-paying attributes. When citizens pay tax, the culture that promotes such culture is what we refer to strong tax culture, and it shows involuntary compliance. Until citizens decide to voluntarily comply to the tax laws of a given country, this tax culture cannot be referred as to being strong, and this must be emphasized. And there are various ways of getting to that to make sure that citizens actually pay or build, they actually build a culture that is moving them to pay their tax without being coerced. Because we have found that coerced measures don't really work, they are limited. Citizens can pay taxes on their own if the culture is built by government. And there are various ways of building tax culture.
Okay, Doctor, we know that there are certain peculiarities that actually shape a behavioral pattern in different climes. So when we look at issues around historical, cultural, and social factors, how do they come to play? How do they also shape tax compliance and behavioral patterns alongside fulfilling your tax obligation, most especially in African societies?
Thank you. Let me continue from where I stopped the other time. Tax education is critical to building tax culture. Education helps to locate new, to reach and encourage new taxpayers. Tax education tells us the role of taxation in every economy. Now, in the course of providing the education, whether by formal training or by communication or by practical assistance from the tax administration, history or the historical evolution of the countries to be brought into it. The culture or the social factors of the people will be brought into the education that is given. So building tax compliance that rests on tax-paying culture will benefit from the form of tax education that is provided in every society. So history, be it the colonial heritage from the colonial orientations every country may have had, as diverse as they have no significant role in undermining revenue collections. It depends nowadays on the type of education being given by every country. And there are commonalities across countries, even within Africa. The formal training helps to build tax culture. Evidence has shown that the practical assistance from tax administration also helps to build a tax-paying culture, which is essential for revenue mobilization if economic development or sustainable development goals are to be attained.
Okay, you have talked about tax education, Doctor. So when we talk about, of course, that's part of a policy that can help to shape in how people react when it comes to tax payments. So when it comes to policymakers coming up with policies that can help foster this tax culture growth and positivity, how do you think they should go about it? Because you've talked about tax education. What other areas do you think they should be focusing on to improve on behavioral patterns and how people react when it comes to paying their taxes?
Thank you. In addition to having tax education that is both formal and informal, government should also ensure that the tax laws and the administration of taxes across African countries are certain. Taxes should be certain. Taxpayers should know what they need to pay. They should know where to pay it, and they should know how to pay it. Also, the convenience of payment is key. This has been a very age-long position. Convenience of taxation is critical. In most of the countries in Africa, it's not convenient for taxpayers, whether individuals or corporate bodies, to pay their taxes. And that, for the corporate bodies, the cost of compliance is relatively high. And that is a major factor for them possibly to try to avoid or possibly to promote tax evasion. So for individuals, cost of compliance too is critical. If it's easy for individuals to pay to comply to the tax system by payment, if it's convenient, it will be easier. So policies from the side of government should make taxes to be convenient and also to make it to be certain. There should be certainty in our tax system. Evidence has not really supported that we have a very high level of certainty in our tax system in Africa, and it's a major concern.
If I'm going to draw from what you said, Doctor, you're making it seem as though it's a major job for government, but then we know that there are constraints and governments can't do it alone. So when it comes to collaboration with businesses, stakeholders, other financial institutions, civil society organizations, international groups, and even the media, how do you think the government can collaborate, can synergize with all these stakeholders or variables, as it were, to ensure that the tax administration in the country or in African countries, whatsoever the case may be, is optimal?
Yeah, thank you. Having optimal taxation that is based on collaboration cannot be. We can't really have one position for all the stakeholders. So you allow me to take it one after the other. With international organizations, key message there is exchange of information. Exchange of information. Countries should partner with international organizations in exchanging information because cross-border trade is there, cross-border taxation issues are there. If countries partner with development partners and organizations outside their shores, there will be a benefit. Taxation will be enhanced and domestic revenue will be increased. And number two, under partnership with international organizations is capacity building. If you permit me, that's one of the areas that West African Tax Administration is contributing. Also, I'm a fellow of IBFD. That's another area IBFD is also contributing. Capacity building. African countries lack capacity. They are trying, but the capacity, the expertise within the continent is still low. So partnership or collaborating with international organizations should be in the area of capacity building. And let me move to businesses. Businesses are concerned with cost of compliance. Difficulty in complying to the tax system is a major concern for businesses. And number two, the macroeconomic environment. We have some high level of uncertainties. Businesses want to have a policy of macroeconomic policies that are predictable for investments, for profit, for prices. They want protection for their investments. So businesses will want to see macroeconomic environments that are predictable. They want to see that government is making compliance to taxes convenient for them. And then for the civil society, they need freedom. And the media, I would like to lump the civil society and the media. Freedom of expression. Taxes are relatively on the low side when it comes to media broadcast and their civil society. Also funding. There could be some support from government in terms of funding the media, funding the civil society in promoting revenue mobilization. These are some of the ways or areas in which I think government can partner or collaborate with international organizations, civil society, businesses, and possibly individuals within the society.
We've also seen that progressive taxation is often advocated for, and that could help reduce income inequality. So for African countries, when it comes to the implementation of progressive tax systems, How can they ensure that when it comes to effectively putting an end to challenges that they may face? So I'd like you to do something. Talk about issues that might arise when it comes to solidifying the strength of tax administrations, and how you feel that African countries with government can overcome those challenges to ensure a progressive tax system is obtained.
Thank you. Having a progressive system of taxation across the countries is both technical and normative. The technical or the objective side of it is that individual income taxation is low. Income and wealth taxes in Africa is on the low side. So number one, government should promote a tax system that ensures that individuals are also brought into the tax net. Having individual taxpayers are brought into the tax net, right from the political leadership down to every person in the society. And if that is done, it has an advantage of bringing public participation in governance. It promotes that more people are participating in the tax system, and that will ensure that they also contribute to democratic governance or governance generally. That's on the technical side. Bringing as many as possible into the tax net is important. Whether they are paying, whether they are not paying, they need to be brought into the tax net, and then we then put up policies that tell how much each segment of the group should pay. Another one that is normative is that the political leaders across the country should have the will, should be bold enough to start filing and declaring their taxes. It's normative, but it's critical to promoting tax-paying culture across the continent. Otherwise, the progressive nature of taxes require that people are charged based on their income. But this will not be done if people are still paying far below what they are expected to pay, even though they are declared being tax compliant. But if they are paying below what is expected of them, it will still not be termed progressive. So government, political leadership, that is critical in Africa. It has been said, and evidence is there, that from the political side, there should be a will for them to file, for them to declare what they are paying. As examples, and technically, majority people should be brought into the tax net in order to promote progressive form of taxation across the continent.
Well, of course, aside from having a political will, one would need a government that has a robust database and, of course, has the technical know-how and the technology to actually drive the processes, to make it seamless, to make it simple, and, of course, to see that everyone is brought on board to have a robust tax system where everybody fulfills that obligation. Of course, revenues are being gotten from it. Thank you so much, Dr. Abiodun Adegboye, Public Finance Economist and Research Fellow, IBFD Center for African Taxation. It's nice to have you talk to us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.